Today, the importance of hand washing has been heavily emphasized since we were made aware of the COVID-19 pandemic. Unicef, in conjunction with various organizations, continues to remind the public of the importance of hand washing as a key prevention measure against COVID-19. A new hand washing education program will be introduced to 23,000 schools across the country, which is expected to reach 12 million learners from grade R to a matric. The program involves changing the curriculum's ABCs to include H is for hand washing in order to instill hand washing habits. All right, to tell us more about this, we're now joined on the line by the Department of Basic Education spokesperson Elijah Mhlanga, and from Unicef South Africa we're joined by Janine, Simon-Meyer. Thank you both very much for joining us. I see Elijah's not up yet, but our team is certainly trying to reach him at this time. So let me start with you, Janine. Thanks indeed for being here with us. Talk to us about this program and the collaboration with the Department of Basic Education. I know that you often team up with the Department of Basic Education on some of your programs. Talk to us about this one in particular.
Thanks very much. Yes, we do. We have a long-standing relationship with the Department of Basic Education. This program in particular, it's a declaration of intent that was signed on Global Handwashing Day, which was the 15th Thursday. And it is to really fundamentally change the way the alphabet is taught, the way young children learn their ABCs. Instead of learning H is for hat, we want to learn H is for hand washing. And in that way, really infuse the education process and system with this act of hand washing for a very young age. So the declaration of intent that was signed between the department and UNICEF and also Unilever was one way of committing to this. And the second thing, as you rightly mentioned in the beginning, was that the department has been expanding its national hygiene promotion and sanitation program across schools in the country. It started off with grade ones and has now been expanded to, as you said, 23,000 schools, and that's in partnership again with Unilever, and Unicef will also be assisting with that. So it's working across all age groups. And the H is for hand washing is one of the most fundamental shifts that we can achieve, and it was an idea worked on with international specialists in health and education, in humanitarian work, and also in behavior change.
Yeah. You mentioned the fact that there were specialists involved. I also assume that there would have been studies in terms of psychology, in terms of what children absorb when it comes to learning. What did those studies really say about, when it comes to the alphabet? Are we sure indeed that, saying H is for hand washing will really sort of translate to the action of hand washing? I mean, what kind of studies went into the psychology of children and how they learn and adapt to this sort of a thing?
Thanks very much. I think, firstly, I'm not an education specialist, so I'm not going to venture into that territory. But what I can tell you is that no amount of education alone works. It's fundamental that we practice also what we learn, so the two will go hand in hand. But we do know that if it isn't instilled, if things aren't normalized from a very young age, it's much harder to adopt these habits as a lifelong habit, which is what we really all need to do because they are so fundamentally important to prevent disease and protect life, particularly for very young children. So the studies that went into it, I would say, would be the behavior change studies around what are the kinds of barriers and motivators that encourage people to wash their hands. But for very young children, once we make this a routine that becomes part of their lives, both what they hear and what they do every single day, and part of the system at school, we really are on a much sounder footing to have this embedded for life.
Yeah. Janine, this is a question I was actually meant to pose to Elijah, but I see we're struggling to get hold of him. But since you do work very closely with the Department of Basic Education, I wonder if it is a question that perhaps you can actually answer. I raise this quite often whenever I speak to the Department of Basic Education. I say, It is great to have all these campaigns, all these programs, but if you look at very many of our schools, particularly in, let's say, rural areas, for example, there is already inadequate ablution facilities to begin with. So the children, the learners, can do great and do well with this H's for hand washing, but are there measures that are in place to make sure that all our schools have adequate ablution facilities? I'm looking at the image just behind you there, where there's a JoJo tank where children are washing their hands. But I wonder if that's been widely rolled out, and adequately so, throughout this time that we have been dealing with COVID-19 in particular. Not that ablution facilities should have been there just because of COVID-19. It should have been the case a long time ago. But I just wonder if enough is being done in this regard to make sure that all our schools, in fact, are able to literally do H's for hand washing.
It's a very good point, and you're quite right. The department, and I'm sure Elijah can expand on this, but the department has identified more than 3,400 schools that are in need of improved access to hand washing facilities and ablution and sanitation. Each one has particularly different concerns. And yes, there is a program in place to roll out hand washing facilities and access to water in all of these schools. And Unicef is in fact involved in that. We will be expanding our WASH program into schools more widely, at least another 80 schools. So there are a number of parties involved in attending to the gap that has been identified by the DBE, and it is being taken very seriously. There's no doubt that COVID threw all of this into stark relief and has generated a lot of action around this. So the short answer is yes. Actions are being taken, because without the access to water and soap, you can't practice hand washing.
All right. I believe that Elijah is indeed now on the line with us. So to be fair, I will then pose that question then to Elijah. Good afternoon to you, Elijah. Thank you for availing yourself then.
Flo, good afternoon. Thank you so much for inviting us.
So I actually asked Janine the question that was meant for you, which she did answer somewhat, but I think you're better placed to ask in terms of the Department of Basic Education. You know, this is something I nag you about, Elijah, and I'm sure you're tired of me asking you about this, but this is a concern I'm always raising about the fact that we can roll out all of these campaigns, we can roll out all of these programs, but importantly, is there adequate ablution facilities at all our schools? I mean, you look at the rural areas, Elijah, and you know I'm not lying, there are problems with ablution facilities. So even though we can roll out these programs, can the learners indeed wash their hands? H is for hand washing. I mean, it sounds like a great initiative, and Janine has done well to explain what it's all about. But the concern really is about what the Department of Basic Education is doing with regards to making sure that our schools, particularly in rural areas, really do have those ablution facilities that are all right for them to indeed wash their hands.
Well, one of the benefits of running campaigns like this one is that it forces everyone to focus on what is needed, because it's a matter that affects everyone. The washing of hands has actually come in sharp focus, especially in this year of 2020. So we cannot wait and not implement programs like this one because there are challenges in the system. We need to do what we can do and take it from there. And in fact, one of the benefits of COVID-19 are that all our schools have now had deliveries of water tanks, which means all our schools have water now, which means the hand washing campaign can now be implemented in all the schools, because one of the requirements for the safe reopening of schools was that there has to be water, and tanks have been delivered to all our schools. That's why all our schools are fully operational and are compliant with the COVID-19 health and safety requirements. So that means that we are making progress in that regard. In terms of the sanitation, yes, in fact, this week we were unveiling facilities in Limpopo as well as Eastern Cape, which are two of the provinces that are hardest hit in terms of the shortage of resources. So we're making progress, and campaigns like this one, they also help to raise awareness among all our stakeholders to ensure that they also come on board and play their part in the delivery of these most important services.
Elijah, I see that you're rolling this campaign out to 23,000 schools. That's quite a huge number. And do you have a capacity to roll it out to this many schools? I mean, apart from your partnership, of course, at Unicef and the other partners you're working with on this particular project, how is the campaign really being rolled out? I'd imagine that you'd have to then involve teachers and principals and all of that, but how is it really being sort of spread out to the schools, if I can ask?
Well, there are other campaigns that we run on a day-to-day basis, so this is just an extension of that.
Yeah.
But what helps with this one is that it's got partners who have the resources to help us, and the handwashing campaign has actually been going on for a long time now, about 5, 6, 7 years. So when COVID-19 came with its strict requirements for washing hands, we're already ahead of time in terms of raising awareness on an annual basis across the system to make sure that everyone is aware of what is required. So now with the COVID-19 making it compulsory for all of us to wash hands, it means that everybody understands that they have to play their part and make sure that our children and our teachers are safe, and that the facilities that are required, most of all, are in place and are delivered on time, and most important, that they are maintained, because that's the most important part in this whole program that we are running.
Yeah. Janine, let me just sort of close and wrap up with you there. With COVID-19, many projects have had to kind of be put on hold. One I particularly remember that UNICEF was involved with the Department of Basic Education is the Learning Through Play program. And I'm wondering if there have been projects that you did together with the Department of Basic Education which have had to kind of be put on hold because of COVID-19. Can you talk to us about the other initiatives that you've done that might have perhaps be put on the back burner to kind of accommodate for COVID-19 related initiatives, please, Janine?
I think what's happened, thank you very much for that. I think what's happened is that programs have pivoted and changed the way they work in order to accommodate what happened with COVID. So a lot of work went through online and through distance support, for example. So young youth mentors where we did have youth and childcare workers directly engaging with young children, that all shifted to being through remote processes and through doing it online.
Yeah. And
it obviously had its difficulties, but it was put in place and a lot of reach was achieved. So I think that pivot happened in most, if not all, of the programs, just to ensure that the work continues. Certainly a huge amount of educational activity shifted online and digital in partnership with the department. And the very early childhood work happened remotely and with mentors and support.
Yeah. Elijah, just to close off with you, since the introduction of hand washing and hygiene related campaigns at schools, how has the response been from not just the learners, but the schools too? Because there's new things now added onto the pressure and the stress of COVID-19 that have to be adhered to. But then there's also new measures, of course, that are being introduced by the Department of Education as well as your partners. How has the attitude really been at the schools with regards to all the, I'll call them changes, I suppose?
Well, so I can tell you that the emphasis on hand washing has meant that schools reconfigure human movement in their premises. And even now, as I'm speaking to you, we are in a school. In fact, we are visiting about 12 schools in Limpopo. Every 5 meters or so, there will be a water station with a sanitizer to make sure that everyone is safe, to make sure that everyone washes hands. And this has also involved the community in a big way, because in every school where you go, there will be people making sure that as you approach the school, you will be sanitized and you'll be shown where to go wash your hands, and you'll be told how to go and where to go. So that has brought a certain level of awareness, not just in schools, but even in the community, to say that now you can't just go into a school. You need to make sure that you've got your mask. You need to make sure that every school has water, And the municipalities are now aware as well that every week they must go to the schools to check if there's still enough water. If not, then they must refill those water tanks in school. So this has actually brought to the fore a whole range of issues around basic services, especially in our schools. So there's some good really that has come out from COVID-19, which has now built on to the hand washing campaign, which the department and its partners had already been running for several years.
And the municipality is also responding well, I assume then?
Yes, they are responding well. We do know that there's capacity challenges there in certain areas, but they bring the water tanks and understanding that they are actually the appropriate authority to deliver on water, not the department. The department will raise awareness about the demand for water, and they must make it a point that it happens. So if you go to the district command councils for COVID-19, the mayors are actually the executive authority when it comes to the provision of water to schools. And in the various engagements that we've had with them, they have committed that they will play their part to make sure that water is delivered in our schools.
All right. Thank you very much to you, Elijah Mhlanga from the Department of Basic Education, as well as to you, Janine Simon-Meyer, representing UNICEF this afternoon. Thank you to both of you for giving us your time here on SABC News.
Thank you.